Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Quantum Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Andia. Today, we're talking about sober dates. I have a unique story around sober date and some opinions, I guess you'd say. And I hope that me explaining is helpful for somebody else out there who may be struggling with this sober date thing. This comes to me from a couple different angles. I've processed this topic with people in recovery extensively, and then I have my own little journey around it. Now, don't get me wrong, sober dates, I'm gonna share the, negative and the positive here. The positive being that they do motivate us. It is the day that signifies we stopped using, and that is a very brave thing that we did. We stopped, and it is proof of that. It signifies our bravery, our courage to step into recovery and to step into a new unknown uncertainty, all the fear that goes around it. I mean, we're meeting all these new people. Our whole life changes. Remember, we're fighting a brain disease with our brain, and it isn't easy. And there's uncomfortability. And that date, it's like this thing we look up to, right? We put it on a pedestal. And because we put it on a pedestal, if there is a return to use or a relapse, the negative side of the sober date is that because we put it up on a pedestal, it has become part of our identity in the recovery space. Like this is my date, right? And so when there's a return to use, it's like it's a start over. Oh, I have to start over. Now I have to go back to my meetings or my groups or whatever with shame because I have to say now my now my sober date is, last weekend or whatever the case may be, right? All of that work I did went to waste. We have this really just rigid thinking around it, and it puts us in a shame spiral, and it does not serve us. It does not serve us. Now, we can look at this a little bit more open-minded, right? We can act the day that we start doing the work is the day that is our recovery day, our freedom day. We don't even need to call it sober day, right? So what we name it is unique. I always say freedom day. That is the day I was free. That is the day that I started working on myself. It is the day I chose to change. I made that choice. And I conquered all the demons inside me, pushing me or trying to pull me the other way. I know many of you relate to this. So in my story alone, I struggled with identity. And when we wrap our identity up in this date, it can be really, self-defeating. But one of the things that I want to share with you all is I didn't actually know my sober date. So if you have not heard my story, you can go back and listen to my story. But I remember when I was realizing the people around me, they all had this date that they stopped using. And I actually had to figure it out. I was boggling my mind around, oh my gosh, I don't know the date that I actually stopped. And because I had such rigid thinking and black and white thinking was also just something that I've always had to work on, I I was like just really like, oh, I need to think about it. When was that day that I stopped using? So I eventually just settled on my best friend's birthday. So Nona, happy birthday. Your birthday's coming up because I know that because my freedom day is coming up and that my freedom day I chose was June 4th. Why'd I choose that day? I actually know that I got sober well before that day by not years or anything, but a couple months. I just do not know the day that I actually was my first day that I had stopped. So that bothered me for a really long time that I just didn't know the day and that everybody else had this day and they were so proud of their day and I didn't have a day. And so I chose the day June 4th, 2008, because that day was the day that I see myself as doing the work and stepping into my new self. I had mentally and physically went through a lot to be sitting where I was. I was sitting as what I thought at the time was my dream job. I was working at a salon where celebrities came to on a regular basis. I was living in New York City, and I remember my first day of that job. And on the first day of that job, I remember calling my best friend to wish her a happy birthday. And that is why I chose that day, because it was a significant day of remembrance. Like, I remember feeling so proud sitting in that salon, working with all these people who have, you know, at the time I was a makeup artist. So it was to me, it was like I made it. I made it out of the muck. I'm still alive. And now I'm working this beautiful job. I'm living in this beautiful city. I never thought I would live in New York City. That, friends, was my freedom day. And that is it. And that is the significance of that day for me. Do I wrap myself up in that? No. I actually know that that's not the day. And I have let go, very much so, have let go of the fact that I don't know my sober date. And it's okay. I don't need to know it. I picked a day that I know for sure it was like I have not used since that day. So I know that, is fact. And I am proud of that. And we can be proud of that. We can even be proud of the day that we start our freedom, even if we do have a return to use. Because guess what? Just because you drank one day or you used one day does not mean all the hard work that you did up until that point is wasted. It's just simply not, because you have done things in your new identity. You're a new person, you have new friends, you have your healing relationships. My gosh, that none of that went to waste. We have to stop thinking about that, like thinking like that. And I'm not here to take away your feelings or not validate when those things do happen. Of course, we're going to have to go through the shame or whatever we're feeling. We are going to have to move through it, because we definitely don't want it sticking in our body, which it will get trapped if we don't work through it, right? We know that. But that's the story of my sober date. So I will, and that's the purpose I wanted to talk about this week in this episode, because my sweet 16 is next week, or this week when this airs. And yeah, so just want to you know challenge everyone. Where are you at with that? Maybe it doesn't even bother you and you're like, oh, this is like not a topic that I need to listen to or hear, or because I don't have an issue with this. But what I do want to say is that we have the power in our recovery to rewrite our story, to rewrite our identity, to be a new person. People without this disease often want to be not the person that they're sitting in, because maybe they're not meeting their goals, maybe they're not, maybe they have other passions and they just choose not to make the decisions towards those things because of fear. We have literally broken through so much fear just by being in recovery. Honestly, because of this disease, like, I'm so grateful for this disease, because our disease literally flashes our life before our eyes, sometimes multiple times. Some of us have died multiple times, but it literally flashes before your eyes and says, hey, you're going to die if you don't, like, most of our precipitating events, if you will, what brings us into recovery is because we've been a little too close to death, or we did die. That was not my experience, but I know many people that have died multiple times and they're still here and they're in recovery now. And that's amazing. But this is the uniqueness of our disease. It really shows up as, death's door, basically. And it puts us in our disease puts us in situations where, you know, it's just like we are really vibrating low. We are not our true selves. We're not being authentic. We're not feeling our feelings. Let me tell you, our emotions is the secret. It is the secret. We want to capture especially those high vibrating emotions. We want to make sure that we capture those and remember them and we feel them as much as possible, because we want to vibrate higher. because when we vibrate higher, it's good practice for when we are vibrating lower, so we can move out of it. We can feel those feelings and move out of them and feel how we want to feel on a daily basis. And what I challenge everyone to do is think about, who do I want to be? Am I that person today? Am I the person that I want to be today? Because if you're not, I want you to, I know not everybody's a journaler, but write down who you want to be. What do you look like? What do you wear? What do you feel on a daily basis? What's your morning routine like? What do you eat for breakfast every day? What kind of food do you eat? How much money do you make? What kind of job do you have? Are you passionate about that job? Who are you? Who is your end result self that you want to be? Who is that? Tap into those high vibrating emotions so you can start feeling like that person and make decisions based on that person. So once we have a clear idea of who we can be and who we want to be, we can actually start to feel what it's like to be that person. I've done this work. I know it works. And I know it can work for you, because I want you to feel what it's like to be the person you've always wanted to be, where we're not scurrying around trying to find our identity. We can create our identity and then be and act like that person, make decisions based on that person that I want to be. And one day you're going to wake up and guess what? You're that person. And then you're going to form new goals and new aspirations, and you're going to move even further along your journey. So yeah, so all of this to circle back to sober date. Definitely, I have come a long way. I've completely reinvented myself. It's one of the reasons I'm talking to you right now on this podcast, because I want to inspire you to be able to do what I did. And it wasn't easy. It took a long time. It happened. And there were times where I was doubting. And remember, doubt is a low vibrating feeling. Nothing happens there, nothing good. There were times where I was like, am I ever going to, make anything of myself? Am I going to just be stuck? Why can't I do this? Why this? Why that? Why that? It took, therapy and working with coaches and whatnot to guide where I am. But now I'm showing up today as that person who can help you do the exact same. I'm so happy you're here. We're all very brave to be in recovery. And I also want to, as you do this, just every single day, ask yourself, who am I showing up today? Am I my old using self? Am I in my old, some of us call it character defects? Are those showing up today? Or am I vibrating on my higher self? Am I showing up as my end result self today? The person that I am, that I want to be. Who am I today? Am I showing up as my recovered self? And yeah, I just said recovered, not in recovery, recovered. The beginning of the famous AA Big Book. If you're not familiar with that book, it is a good book, even though it's an old book. Even if you don't work a traditional program, it's still a good book. At the beginning, it says, "We are men and women recovered." How hopeful is that? Let me tell you, I am not afraid to say that I am very much feeling recovered, very much so. And I'm happy and proud to say that. And there's a different definition of when we say we're in recovery. For me, it feels better to say recovered. So whatever verbiage you'd like to use for yourself, please use it, because that is, what I can't tell you how to say this or that or the other thing, and I can't tell you who to form for your end result self, but ask yourself those questions. Who do you want to be? And think of that person, like, what do you dress like? Like, imagine him or her or they or Z. Imagine that. Really have a clear idea and picture, and then start doing just little tiny things, and they'll add up faster than you think. And then one day you'll wake up and you will be that self, and you will be, because you create your reality with your thoughts. Many people say, "Oh, I'll believe it when I see it." No, friends, we believe it first and then we see it. All right, so I will end on that. I hope that this was helpful for you all, and I will see you next week. Drink water. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found value in this information. And if you did, please share it. Another way to support the podcast is to leave a 5-star review. If you want to connect, you can message me on Instagram or email me at andiaray@outlook.com. And remember, drink water.